I did secretly. I didn't want to tell anybody because I was ashamed. I thought maybe that was something that lightweights did.
The curtain falls, the spotlight dims, but the drama, that's just beginning. Did Gene Hackman die in peace? The truth is far more disturbing. His fortune, exceeding $80 million in cash, real estate, and hidden investments, wasn't a legacy of prosperity, it was a curse. A fortune built on decades of unforgettable films, Oscar wins, and an unmatched career in Hollywood, all turning into a source of heartbreak for the very family who loved him most. This wealth brought to light long-buried secrets, fueled betrayals, and turned blood ties into battle lines. We're talking about late-night whispers, desperate unsent letters, and dreams crushed before they even took flight. This wasn't just an inheritance, it was the price of greed, a nightmare that refused to die with him. Join us as we uncover the truths surrounding this Hollywood icon and the secrets he may have taken to his grave. Gene Hackman, the star who chose to disappear, a legend among legends, a name that commanded respect and admiration. But unlike so many stars who desperately clung to the limelight, Hackman did something very few dared. He walked away. No farewell tours, no emotional interviews, no grand finales, just silence. For decades, he had been the face of some of cinema's most unforgettable characters. Yet, when the cameras stopped rolling, he chose a different script for his final act, one far removed from red carpets and flashing lights. By the 1980s, he had already set his sights on a quieter existence in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where the desert winds carried secrets and solitude ruled most. Gene Hackman was born on January 30th, 1930, in San Bernardino, California. His early life was hard. During the Great Depression, his family moved a lot before settling in Danville, Illinois. His father worked as a press operator, and money was always tight. Movies became an escape for young Gene, who spent hours watching stars like James Cagney and Errol Flynn, dreaming of a better life. When Gene was 13, his father left without warning, simply waving goodbye as he drove away. This left a deep mark on Gene and taught him that small actions can cause big feelings, a lesson he later used in acting. Meanwhile, his mother struggled with alcoholism, making home life even harder. As a teenager, Gene often clashed with authority. He got into trouble for small acts like stealing candy and soda, even landing him in jail for a night. At 16, after arguing with his basketball coach, he dropped out of school. With no clear path, Gene left Danville by lying about his age to join the US Marine Corps. From 1946 to 1951, he served as a field radio operator in China, Japan, and Hawaii. Although military life gave him some structure, he still had issues with authority and was often punished. While in the Marines, he worked briefly as a disc jockey for Armed Forces Radio, a job that gave him his first taste of being heard and marked the start of his interest in entertainment. Gene's journey into acting was not easy. In 1958, he joined the Pasadena Playhouse, a respected acting school, but faced rejection from teachers and classmates. Along with Dustin Hoffman, he was even voted least likely to succeed, and he flunked out after just 3 months. This harsh rejection did not stop him. Instead, Gene worked harder and refused to let others define his future. Later, both he and Hoffman became Hollywood legends, Gene winning 2 Academy Awards. After leaving Pasadena, Gene moved to New York City in the late 1950s with no money or connections. He took any job he could, including working as a doorman at Howard Johnson's. Even though his job was humbling, insults from former teachers and officers only fueled his determination. He began taking small roles in off-Broadway plays while living with other struggling actors, like Dustin Hoffman and Robert Duvall. Despite the hardships, the group motivated each other by rehearsing, discussing acting, and even playing music on their rooftop while dreaming of success. In 1964, Gene landed his first Broadway role in the romantic comedy Any Wednesday, which ran for 983 performances, alongside Tony-winning Sandy Dennis. This success opened the door to Hollywood. That same year, he earned his first credited film role in Lilith with Warren Beatty. Gene's big break came in 1967 when he played Buck Barrow in Bonnie and Clyde. After years of minor roles, Warren Beatty saw his potential and helped him secure the part. Director Arthur Penn wanted the film to feel raw and real, and Gene's portrayal of Buck, A loyal yet troubled man earned him his first Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Even though he lost to George Kennedy, the nomination proved his talent and set his rising career in motion. When Bonnie and Clyde hit theaters on August 13, 1967, it was a huge hit. Made on a $2.5 million budget, it grossed over $70 million worldwide, earned 10 Oscar nominations, and won 2. Gene's performance was praised for its warmth and underlying sadness, marking him as a rising star in Hollywood. After this breakthrough, Gene, at 37, suddenly found himself in the spotlight. Though he worried about being typecast, he worked even harder. In 1970, he starred in I Never Sang for My Father, earning another Academy Award nomination, and the 1970s became a turning point as he starred in over 20 films and showed he could lead a movie. Gene's career soared in 1971 when he played Detective Jimmy Popeye Doyle in The French Connection. The role won him the Academy Award for Best Actor and made him one of Hollywood's most respected stars. Based on real detectives, Doyle was rough, obsessive, and willing to cross moral lines to catch criminals. The film was a major hit, winning 5 Oscars including Best Picture, and its intense action changed crime dramas forever. Even though Gene almost declined the role, director William Friedkin convinced him, resulting in a performance that felt real and raw. He reprised Doyle in French Connection 2, 1975, further redefining the image of on-screen cops. In 1974, Gene starred in The Conversation as Harry Cole, a surveillance expert consumed by a dangerous recording. The film won the Palme d'Or at Cannes and became one of the best thrillers of its time, despite taking a heavy toll on him. Later, in Unforgiven, 1992, he gave another memorable performance as Little Big Daggett, a role that earned him his second Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor and redefined the Western genre. Not every film was a success. Some projects in the mid-1970s, like Lucky Lady, 1975, and Scarecrow, 1973, flopped. Gene even joked about borrowing his daughter's old car to get to auditions because he had spent too much on planes, cars, and bad investments. Faced with financial pressure, he sometimes chose well-paying roles with little impact. One notable role was Lex Luthor in Superman, 1978. Initially reluctant, Gene eventually agreed, and his portrayal became one of the most famous villain roles, reprising it in later sequels. Gene married Faye Maltese in 1956 when he was 26. Faye, a bank clerk, and Gene met at a YMCA dance in New York during his early struggles. They lived in a small apartment and built a family together, with son Christopher born in 1960, daughter Elizabeth in 1962, and youngest Leslie in 1966. As his career took off, Gene spent long periods away from home, which strained his family relationships. In interviews, he later admitted that work always came first, and he regretted losing touch with his children, especially Christopher. The long absences also took a toll on his marriage. After 30 years together, Gene and Faye divorced in 1986. He expressed regret about how his career affected his family, even as he tried to reconnect with his children. After the divorce, Gene met Betsy Arakawa, a classical pianist 32 years his junior in the mid-1980s. Despite concerns about their age difference, Gene said their relationship was about growing apart from Faye. They dated for 7 years before marrying on December 1, 1991. Betsy helped him rebuild his bond with his children, and they moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico to enjoy a quieter life. Gene retired from acting in 2004 and spent his later years away from Hollywood's chaos. Gene was known for his strong opinions on set. His perfectionism sometimes made him hard to work with, and he was known for his blunt feedback. In 2001, for example, Wes Anderson cast him in The Royal Tenenbaums. Although Anderson wrote the role with Gene in mind, Gene was frustrated by the idea and even insulted the young director. Despite the tension, his performance won him a Golden Globe, and Anderson later admitted Gene was one of the most talented actors he'd worked with. Gene also had on-set clashes with others. During Unforgiven, 1992, he feuded with co-star Richard Harris, and their real-life tension made their scenes powerful. Directors like Tony Scott described Gene as tough but honest on films such as Crimson Tide, 1995, and Enemy of the State, 1999. On Get Shorty, 1995, his frustration with John Travolta's relaxed approach was evident. At 74, after finishing Welcome to Mooseport in 2004, Gene retired from acting. The constant pressure and business demands had taken a toll on his health, confirmed by a stress test that showed his heart could not handle it anymore. He later criticized Hollywood for being too focused on money rather than true art. Even in retirement, Gene continued to create by writing novels. His first book, Wake of the Perdido Star, 1999, was co-written with underwater archaeologist Daniel Lenihan and told the story of a young man turned pirate. They later released more books together, and Gene eventually wrote on his own, publishing Payback at Morning Peak 2011 and Pursuit 2013. Although none of his books became films, his writing showed his creative spirit beyond the screen. Gene Hackman built more than just a legendary acting career. He built a smart financial empire. By the time he passed away in February 2005, his net worth had reached $80 million. This wealth did not come solely from his acting. It was the result of smart decisions, careful investments, and a deep understanding of real estate. His film roles brought in huge paychecks. For example, playing Lex Luthor in Superman 1978 earned him $2 million, a huge sum at the time. Other films like The Quick and the Dead and Lucky Lady each added another $1.3 million to his earnings. Royalty payments from his most famous films continued to bring in money even after his retirement. But Gene did not rely only on acting. He knew that real estate was a wise investment. One of his prized properties was a 12-acre estate in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Bought in the 1980s when it was just a rundown building, he transformed it into a beautiful home with Pueblo, colonial, and Spanish Baroque influences. The property, with views of mountains stretching to Colorado, was worth about $3.8 million at the time of his death. He also owned a 25-acre estate in Montecito. Purchased in 1980, the property featured stunning ocean views, a grand marble hall, a sweeping staircase, and even an elevator. In 1985, he sold it for $5.5 million, but as property values rose, the same estate later sold for $25 million in 2015. Gene even owned a home in Pebble Beach, California, which he sold in 1993. Each property was not just a home, but a part of his carefully planned financial strategy. In addition to physical properties, Gene managed offshore bank accounts and financial portfolios with a secrecy that even those close to him did not fully understand. These hidden accounts helped protect his wealth from public view and kept his money growing long after he stopped earning from Hollywood. Top financial advisors helped him make these smart moves, preserving his fortune. After his death, one big question remained: who would inherit his wealth? Gene had 3 children from his first marriage, Christopher, Elizabeth, and Leslie, who were expected to be the main heirs. His second wife, Betsy Arakawa, had been with him for 34 years, but they did not have children together. If Gene had died without a will, New Mexico law would have given half of his community property and part of his separate assets to Betsy. However, something unexpected happened. Betsy died just days after him under unusual circumstances. This raised legal questions. Under the Simultaneous Death Act, if 2 people die within 120 hours of each other, their estates do not transfer between them. Instead, the assets go to the secondary beneficiaries. This meant that Gene's children were likely to inherit most of his $80 million fortune. If Gene had left a will with different instructions, like donations to charity, those would be followed instead. But until the legal process is complete, nothing is certain. When the family lawyer finally read Gene Hackman's will, the room fell silent. What should have been a moment of closure turned into an emotional confrontation. Instead of names and heartfelt messages, the will detailed a list of conditions and unexpected beneficiaries. Shockingly, not one of the names on the inheritance list belonged to any of Hackman's children. The documents revealed that a significant portion of his fortune had been earmarked for strangers: a childhood friend from California, a retired assistant from the 1980s, and even a waiter from his favorite Santa Fe restaurant. Family members could hardly believe what they were reading. The once admired actor, who had brought fame to the Hackman name, had instead left behind instructions that would forever separate him from those he had raised. For Christopher Hackman, the eldest son, the revelation was particularly devastating. In a moment of raw emotion, he recalled how, as a child, he had always looked up to his father's film roles, only to grow up with a man who seemed emotionally absent and secretive. Now, as he listened to the lawyer's reading, he felt as if every memory was being rewritten. His anger was not only directed at the man who had left him with an impossible puzzle, but also at the system that allowed such secrets to remain hidden for so long. Elizabeth, Hackman's youngest daughter, was equally affected. She had always hoped that the man behind the legendary image would leave her some warmth or a message of love. Instead, she was faced with cold rules and strict conditions that forbade the family from ever speaking about his life or attempting to create memoirs. The strict terms meant that any attempt to tell their father's story could lead to a total loss of any claim on the fortune. This condition was more than a legal requirement. It was a reminder that the emotional distance Hackman had maintained in life would follow him even in death. The reaction among the family was mixed. Some members, like close relatives and friends of the family lawyer, later explained that Hackman had always kept his personal and professional lives strictly separated. But for those left behind, the separation meant that every dollar of wealth was intertwined with a painful sense of abandonment. The will had not only redistributed his wealth, but had also divided the family emotionally, turning memories of shared moments into bitter reminders of lost opportunities. Multiple sources, including interviews with former colleagues and family friends, reported by major news outlets such as CNN and the New York Times, have confirmed that the shock of the will led to months of legal battles and emotional confrontations. These sources note that what should have been a moment of remembrance quickly turned into a long, drawn-out search for answers about why a man of such talent and achievement would choose to leave his family with a legacy that felt more like a curse than a gift. As the family gathered in their Santa Fe estate to sort through old letters, documents, and personal diaries, the full extent of Hackman's financial planning became painfully clear. The hidden fund from the 1990s, along with numerous accounts and anonymous investments, formed a complicated web that made it nearly impossible for them to claim any part of the inheritance without first giving up their connection to their father's memory. The more the family searched through Hackman's records, the deeper the mystery became. His private diaries and unfinished scripts revealed a man who kept his true feelings hidden. They showed that Hackman felt torn between his public image and his need for personal freedom. He wrote about the loneliness of celebrity life and the pressure to maintain appearances, even if it meant isolating himself from those he loved. One entry from the mid-1990s stated, "If there is any hope of me keeping control, no one in the family should ever use my name to profit or speak of my past." This revealed a rarely seen side of Hackman. His careful planning was not just about money, it was a way to protect his identity and keep part of himself away, even from his own children. Investigators later discovered that Hackman had hidden large sums in trust accounts and anonymous investment funds. One account, set up after his second Oscar, remained shrouded in secrecy despite detailed records. Experts believe he used multiple layers of protection to ensure money could not be traced or claimed by anyone who did not follow his strict rules. For the family, these secrets raised painful questions. Why had their generous father shielded his wealth so carefully that it was inaccessible to those who needed it most? Some speculated that Hackman was punishing them for emotional shortcomings, while others thought he just wanted to keep his private world separate after years of public scrutiny. The result was a legacy full of unanswered questions and strict conditions that left the family feeling even more isolated. Hackman's will only added to the mystery by forbidding any public discussion of his private life. The rules stated that speaking out could lead to losing their claim on the inheritance, forcing the family into silence. They were caught between wanting to understand his choices and being legally barred from sharing the truth. Gene Hackman's hidden fortune challenges our ideas about fame, legacy, and family. Here was a man who touched millions on the silver screen, yet left behind a maze of secrets that still hurt those who loved him. His careful planning, meant to protect his legacy, turned a treasured inheritance into deep pain. As we reflect on his life, one thing is clear. Sometimes the cost of keeping secrets is higher than any amount of money. Hackman's financial empire was built to guard his legacy, but it ultimately left his family struggling to reconcile the man they admired with the painful reality of his final choices. Before you go, please subscribe to our channel for more in-depth stories about Hollywood legends and the secrets they left behind. Like and share this video if you're interested in the real stories behind the stars, and let us know in the comments if you want more content on the untold side of celebrity lives. Thank you for watching this deep look into one of Hollywood's most puzzling legacies. Remember, every story has more than one side. Gene Hackman may have left a fortune behind, but his true legacy lies in the lasting impact he had on film, his family, and everyone who admired his work.